About business as usual. This is a smaller player in the same environment. It's
different
Raytheon.
Environment.
Is it a different environment?
This
I thought
is
you said
defense
this was
contracting.
also. Oh, it's not the
No,
biotech. There's another biotech.
There's another biotech coming after the break. No, here we're talking
this
about
is a
an
completely
armaments
different environment. You're throwing names at me that I haven't seen before.
Fantastic. Now this is a first for us.
All right, this is interesting because this one could dramatically change depending on who wins the US presidential election. Raytheon is a defense contractor.
Right.
Paul?
It manufactures mostly military equipment, and it's best known for its electronics related to missile technology. So you will have heard of something called the Tomahawk missile, as well as a system called the Patriot missile system. These are guided missiles. These are the sort of things that get thrown around when...
well, and this is what the market is concerned about, is whether with a Trump win, it would be advisable to have that man with his finger on the arsenal.
Most of these are missiles that don't carry nuclear warheads. You'll be happy to know. But
market cap $40.5 billion US, trades on a PE of 19.2 and a dividend yield here of just over 2%.
Right. So, I mean, one of my favorite moments in TV history was CNBC US segment where it was being discussed what was going to happen in Syria, and they had a defense contract expert on. And the guest host, one of the US, Joe Kernan, or one of those guys, said to him, well, do you think that these companies will do well because the US, might put boots on the ground and invade Syria? And the guy said, he thinks that's very unlikely, but he would buy shares in Raytheon because, Tomahawk missiles are cheap. You can just have a ship in the Mediterranean, you can throw those over the, sky and bomb Damascus or bomb Aleppo and so on.
I'm not really sure what my response is supposed to be to this favorite moment in TV history.
The guy says to him, but what do you mean by cheap? He said, oh, no, they're very cheap. Those Tomahawk missiles only cost like $1.5 million each.
Oh, I see.
A cinch.
Well, there we go. And that really gives us a starting point for this discussion, given the expense associated with defense contracts and the arsenal.
I guess the question really is to ask is, do you think military spending in the US is going to change depending on the outcome of the election?
Well, isn't it a given that if Trump comes in, we're going to see a lot of spending on military
I don't know,
issues?
because he talks a good game, but my sense is actually, again, US military spending is probably going to remain very high.
Irrespective of whether Trump or Clinton
yes,
comes in.
I mean, you know the numbers. They spend more money on defense spend than every other nation in the world put together.
I'm interested to see how this one has performed. That's responding quite well.
But it's performed well over time, and there hasn't really been any short-term change. You're right.
Yeah, but 2016 has been pretty much an upward steep
tremendous share chart, and if you go back even further, it looks just the same, but longer.
Don't you regret not getting into this one?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I feel about buying companies like this because, they make money from dropping hellfire on other people's heads.
And we know your stance on the likes of
we won't even buy
BAT,
cigarette stocks.
You won't buy the cigarette stocks. Although you do buy the likes of an AB InBev. You do.
Yeah.
I suppose that you're like you
not with an enormous amount of
have
conviction.
some liquor exposure. It's probably the worst that you will expose yourself
Look,
to.
there are others, and remember we talked about Boeing a few other days ago, which makes commercial aircraft and some other things. But I don't know.
So we're going to call this one hot or not
it's
on
trading
Raytheon.
at its all-time high. 90% of its revenues come from military contracting.
It's not going to be impacted, you're saying, by when either Clinton or Trump.
No.
So onwards and upwards for this one.
There's only one little slight wrinkle. You know that the Patriot missile systems are the kind like Poland buys them because they're worried about the Russians.
I didn't know that. I didn't actually know the name of the company at the start of the
Trump
conversation.
talks a whole lot of nonsense about how he doesn't think that the US should be like in Western Europe providing missile defense systems. So I guess you could find that if Trump were to be elected, there might be a negative reaction from the likes of Raytheon and some of the other defense contractors like L3 and McDonnell Douglas and so on and so forth.
Have you called this? Have you called it yet?
So
hot or not?
I think this is, look, I'm going to go not hot because it's not something that I would be keen to invest in, but I don't think the fundamentals change at all.